Hey guys, welcome. Modii here, and you'll notice I'm by myself for a brand new thing we're trying out on the channel. This is Mondays with Modii. I'm Modii. It's Monday. Today's the day to do it, so it made sense. Tuesdays with Steve made no sense. Steve's not my name. It's not Tuesday. That seemed dumb. So just to give you guys kind of an idea of what this is this is a brand new series of videos that will come out on Mondays. It's going to be just me. Maybe at certain times I may have some friends or a certain pink-haired girl that you all know and love. But for the most part, it's just going to be me having a place to talk, to tell stories, to talk about experiences of my life, and kind of ideas. Now, when I decided I want to do this, I've been thinking about this for quite some time now. I wanted to set up videos in kind of a series, kind of a set of videos, and it had a relatively intertwined theme between them. And that's what I'm going to try out. We'll see if you guys like it, see if it's something you guys want to watch, but I'm kind of excited to do this. I'm weirdly nervous. I made thousands of Minecraft videos. I made these vlogs with Heather. I've streamed, but for some reason, just me here with you guys is a little weird. I think a lot of you guys are going to treat this more like a podcast than anything else. You can watch if you want, hand gestures and deep eye contact. But yeah, so this first set I wanted to work on was kind of my experience with video games. For any of you guys that don't know, I'm 42 years old, and I've been playing video games literally my entire life. And not only did I play them like most people do, but I made careers out of video games. For any of you guys that don't know, I ran video game stores or worked in video game stores for 15 years. Obviously, you guys know I do YouTube. I have a YouTube gaming channel, and all that stuff. So, I've been doing this for a really long time. So, my hopes with this series of videos, this kind of, Mondays with Modii, is a place so I can talk about facts I know, to talk about opinions I have, to go on rants. You may ask yourself, what's the difference between a rant and an opinion? Volume of voice and just guttural anger, basically. But yeah, so the first set I want to talk about, like I said, is about video game stuff and how video games have been in my life. I was born in 1977, a long time ago. I don't remember it too much, being a newborn, an infant, if you will. And, but as I was growing up, one thing I do remember is my brothers and my sister were all significantly older than me. I am the adorable little baby of the family, as you can tell by the gray hair and the weathered skin. I am the cute little baby. And I have 3 brothers and a sister, and they all range between 14 and 18 years older than me. But I was planned. I was totally planned. My mom totally wanted to have a kid, in her late 30s when all the rest of her kids were in high school. Duh. It's every mom's dream. Anyways, so growing up, my brothers played video games. So I can remember back playing the original Pong, the early Ataris, Atari 2600 and 5200 and all of those. They were a lot more outdoorsy, sporty type guys. They didn't really sitting around playing video games all the time wasn't necessarily something that everybody did. But I grew up in arcades, playing like Pac-Man and Centipede and all that stuff. And I played games for a long time. And then I can remember in 1985, for you guys that don't know, if you don't know much about it, go check out the video game crash of the early 80s. I know 1985, the original Nintendo came out, the NES, the original guy came out. And my mom bought me one right when it came out. And I was super excited. My friends got him too. We traded games. It was super awesome. And I really loved it. That's really, I feel, where my passion for video games came in. The Atari, the Pong, all in television, all that stuff was kind of my brother's things that I just played with. But this was the first one that was mine. And I was super excited about it. I couldn't wait to play Mario and play Duck Hunt. Pro wrestling, if you guys remember pro wrestling with Starman, that was awesome. And I played it. I played it a lot. I really, really enjoyed it. It was in the living room like they were back in the day, hooked up to the, 23-inch, barely color TV we had, that still had knobs, no remotes, nothing like that, and played it. Even my mom played it. There's a game called Section Z, which is a side flying game where I don't know how to explain it, but she played that all the time. She played 1942. It was funny. She was one of those people that when she would play, she would lean where she wanted to go. And sometimes I would see her fall over, and that made me happy. That's when I knew video games were in my heart. So, but yeah, played Nintendo. Time went on. My mom got me a Game Boy, original black and white Game Boy. And I remember playing, so many hours of Tetris, so much of like Super Mario Land, and things along those lines, and loved that. The only problem is I had to fight my mom for it. She started playing Tetris and then got Dr. Mario, and she was hooked. And I remember for my 8th grade graduation, going from 8th grade into high school, I had a Game Boy, and it was on its last leg. There was lines burned into the screen, like lines of pixels gone, and it was beat up. It was battery life. It took AA batteries, but it just sucked them through and stuff like that. So my loving mother so much got me a new Game Boy. It was still black and white Game Boy at this time, as a junior high graduation present. Mind you, I probably played about 20 minutes total on that Game Boy, and all of a sudden it was hers again. So yes, my mom bought me a Game Boy and then stole it from me. So that was fun. I got into the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo was kind of early high school, late junior high, early high school, and loved it. I remember playing, Super Mario World with Yoshi. That blew my mind. And that's when I ran into eventually what ended up being my favorite game of all time. And still to this day, 30 years later, 25, 30 years later, it still stands. One of my favorite games of all time is Super Metroid. I really never played the first one a lot at that point. I played a little bit of it, but it didn't really catch me. But for some reason, Super Metroid, it was linear, but it kind of had this feeling of where you had to figure out where to go, and sometimes you'd have to double back, or sometimes you'd find a place and couldn't move on, and you'd have to come back there hours and hours later when you had something unlocked in an area. And I really, really fell in love with that game, and it was amazing. And it was actually and I don't want to ruin any of these games if they're games you've never played, but it was the first game that really kind of got me emotionally. There's something to do with a Metroid at the end, has something to do with Metroid 2 from the Game Boy and whatnot. So I had that. And right about that time is, when good old puberty kicked in, and I was more interested in girls than I was in video games. But I had a Nintendo 64, and I was mostly a Nintendo kid. I had friends who had the Genesis and had, 32X and Sega CD and eventually the Saturn and all those. And I played them, and they weren't bad, but I never had the connection to those that I had to the Nintendo systems. And I remember when the 64 came out, it was the first time a system came out that I weirdly felt a disconnect with. It really was the first system that didn't seem like it was from my generation. It was amazing, don't get me wrong. You look at it now and it seems very dated, but Super Mario, Super Mario 64, Star Fox, and those things were amazing games, but it was a system I really didn't connect with as much. By this point, the Pokemon games had started to take off on the Game Boy. You started seeing a lot of Pokemon stuff, which I didn't know anything about. I didn't really care about. At this point, I was doing a lot of skateboarding. I was getting out of the house and whatnot. But it's still a good system. And I know for a lot of people, it's how the Nintendo was to me is how the 64 is to them. People like in their early 30s, the Nintendo 64 was their first system or their core system, and that is their connection to their childhood. That's how I kind of look at the original Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. And as time went on, I got like a PlayStation 1, I had a Dreamcast. Dreamcast was a horribly underrated system. I think he could have done so much better, but by that point, Sega had made some questionable choices, and then with Sony coming into the picture and everything like that, that really kind of put the final nail in their coffin. And yeah, and I mean, I had a PlayStation. I had a chipped PlayStation, if anybody knows what that means. Like, it was naughty. It was very bad. And, but I played a bunch of games on there, and at this point, I had still never sold video games, even at this point. And I had tried a bunch of other stuff. And around this point, I started, this was around PS2, well, before PS2, PS1 time. I started, having jobs and making my own money, and I started having kids, got married, all that fun stuff. And I really started wanting to collect things. That was one big thing when I got into my early to mid 20s, was there was a lot of stuff being raised by a single mother that I couldn't get when I was a kid, and I was never really bothered for. She got me so much stuff. I mean, as you can tell, she got me all these systems. She bought me toys and stuff. But there was always these things that it even got to the point where I didn't even ask for. I mean, things that were just ridiculously expensive. And so I started collecting. And one of the first things I started collecting was video game systems. There's a place here, of course, for any of you guys know, I live in wonderful Tucson, Arizona, and there's a place here called Bookman's where I had a lot of friends that worked there, and basically it's a resale store. They sell books and video games and movies and musical equipment and electronics and toys and board games, like anything you can think of that can kind of be resold, they sell. They're all pre-owned. There's no new stuff. Maybe some weird little tchotchke stuff, but for the most part, it's all pre-owned. They don't have anything in an inventory. The person working determines what something trades in for and therefore what it sells for. At least this is how it was back then. And I had buddies there that would sell me stuff super cheap. So I started collecting systems, and I started with the ones I wanted. Got another Nintendo, got a Super Nintendo, got a top-loading Nintendo with the dog bone controller, 64, all of those. I started getting a lot of the Sega systems I never had, Master System, Genesis, 32X, Sega CD, the Saturn and the Dreamcast. I had a PS1, and I think around this time, this was after I kind of started selling video games too. I had a PS2, I got an Xbox, I got a GameCube, so I had all of those, all the Sony ones at the time, all of the Nintendo ones, all the Sega ones. And then I started getting kind of into weird ones like 3DO. I had a couple 3DOs. I had, I can't even remember all of them. I had a lot of the handheld systems. So I had like a Virtual Boy from Nintendo, the thing that made your eyes bleed. That was fun. I had a lot of the handhelds like the Lynx, the Nomad, obviously all kinds of Game Boys and Game Boy Micros and DS's, and this was all before 3DS's and whatnot. The Game Boy SP, the little flip one, I thought that one was amazing. Still one of my favorite. And yeah, like I said, 3DOs, and started getting some of the older system. I had some of the Ataris, older Ataris. I had the Jaguar. I had the Lynx, like I said earlier, which was Atari's handheld system. And yeah, just all kinds of stuff. And I ended up, over time, getting every American released console, to my knowledge, up until that point. At this point, it was the late 90s, early 2000s. So I had ColecoVision, Intellivision, all kinds of stuff. And I remember a lot of these were kind of just put into a cabinet. And one day, my wife at the time was off at work, and I had went and bought another giant entertainment center, those big ones you used to have with all the different spots for everything. I bought a giant second entertainment center and a second TV and set it up in her living room while she was at work. And then I hooked up every system. I had 12 system selectors needed to be able to hook everything up. And at this point, and mind you, I get a lot of this stuff on eBay. I bought it, like I said, for my friends at Bookman's, because they carry all retro stuff. They still do. And I was getting, Nintendos for $10. I was getting Dreamcast for $15, because I kind of had the hook up there. It might have been a little shady. May not have been on the up and up, but I didn't care. And yeah, so I got all this hooked up, and I think over time I had picked up probably about 4,000 games. And I'll be dead honest with you, out of that 4,000 games, I maybe played 10% of them, to be dead honest with you. So anyway, so yeah, I had all these games, and you know, I mean, I played a lot of them, but out of 4,000 games, you know, 10% is still a lot of games. But I enjoyed it. But the funny part is more than the games themselves, I really just enjoyed the history of video games. That was something I really, really liked. I really liked finding out the weird little stories behind a game being created, or, you know, the tall tales of a landfill full of ET Atari cartridges and stuff. And that was always something that was really interesting to me. It was always something, and it wasn't something really that it was about, you know, telling people about, or having that knowledge. It was entertaining to me. So getting a lot of these systems, and to be honest with you, a lot of these systems I didn't care about. I didn't have any interest in playing. I just wanted it was just in collecting. It was just in collecting them. But I learned a lot about them. I learned a lot about, you know, different retro systems and the current systems at the time. And I would say while I was doing this, the Xbox and GameCube had come out. I think I'd said that earlier. So that was just to give you an idea. I even got into some foreign systems. I had gotten my hand on a Famicom and a Super Famicom, which, for you guys who don't know, is what the Nintendo was in Super Nintendo was in Japan. And of course I got a few games for them. They were all in Japanese, and they were mostly games I already had. Like, I think I got the Super Mario World, and I think I got a Mega Man game or something like that. But so I already knew the games, but they were in Japanese, so that was kind of cool. They were more of a collector thing. I did remember I got a thing called a Wonder Swan, which was a handheld system from Japan. I bought it on eBay somewhere. It was pretty cool. They had a black and white one, they had a color one, but it was really neat because it was about that big, and it, you know, this is prior to everything having a joystick on it. So it had kind of a D-pad, and then the buttons on the other side looked like the D-pad as well. So they kind of looked the same. And then it had another one up here, and the screen was long and thin, and you would play it like that. But then if you want to play a game like an overhead shooter game, you would actually take it and turn it straight way up, and what was the D-pad was now your buttons, and now you had this other D-pad over here. So it gave a lot of options. I remember I got a Final Fantasy game. I don't remember what Final Fantasy what it was. I think it might have been made exclusively for the Wonder Swan, and I'll have to remember that. It's been a long time. And I was all excited about it until I realized I don't know how to read Japanese. And that made playing Final Fantasy tricky, you know, because this wasn't voice acted, this was all reading. So yeah, I really got into those and really enjoyed collecting them. And this happens to me a lot. It's one of the reasons why I don't collect stuff nearly as much as I used to. But I just, one day I had it all, and the thrill of the hunt was gone. So I sold some of them off, sold some of them on eBay, sold some of them, mostly the ones that I had no interest in playing. I wasn't going to play I had a Neo Geo cartridge and a Neo Geo CD, which went for a good amount of money, and I actually paid a good amount of money for them. So I think I made a little bit of a profit off of those. If you ever want to check it out, the Neo Geo cartridge-based system, the games were like the size of a VHS tape, because they were pretty much the cards that were inside the Neo Geo arcade machines. They just took them out and put them in a plastic case and made a machine read them. So if you ever played Metal Slug, is probably, or King of Fighters, there's some good games that are examples on those. Sold a lot of them, gave some of them to my friends, kept some of them. I can say as of right now, I think I still have my original GameCube, because I had given it to my mom because she started playing Animal Crossing. God, my mom plays a lot of video games. She should start a channel. Anyways, she played Animal Crossing like for years, like fanatically. It was ridiculous. But and then I think I got her a Wii. She gave me my GameCube back, and I think the boys might actually have the GameCube downstairs. That thing will last forever. When the big one comes, it's gonna be cockroaches, Twinkies, and GameCubes. That's all it's gonna be left. So But yeah, like I said, I really enjoy that stuff. And I mean, even to this day, playing on PC, I have an Xbox One. We have a Switch. We don't have a PS4. We'll get into a Sony conversation another time. But yeah, I still like Nintendo. I'm still a big Nintendo fan. I like that a lot. So it's really cool. So okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up there. That's the first episode. This one I wanted to kind of give a quick history of my video game owning history, to kind of show that I've owned a lot of stuff, I researched a lot of stuff, I played a lot of stuff, so I'm not just somebody. You see a lot of people online that critique video game stuff, and they're like, I had a PS1, I think I know what I'm talking about. It's like, shut up, Billy. So, yeah, so what we're going to delve into, and I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek in the upcoming videos, just so you guys know, for you guys who don't know, I worked in the video game department at Circuit City. That was my first one for a couple of years. I ran a video game store called Game Crazy. It's like GameStop, but just different companies to be owned by Hollywood Video. They're all gone now. I ran that as a store manager for 6 years. I worked a holiday at Toys R Us. That could be an entire channel just talking about that. And I helped set up a local mom and pop place that isn't here anymore. God, I just realized something. I worked at Circuit City, Game Crazy, Toys R Us, and this mom and pop gaming store. They're all gone. I'm the death bringer of video game stores. Oh Christ, and then the last thing is I worked at GameStop. They're not doing so hot. If you want your video game store to go out of business, I'm your guy. Holy jeez. Didn't think about that. So, in this series, we're going to start talking about, I'm going to kind of work my way through, starting in Circuit City when I was like 22 years old, 21, 22 years old, and all the way through till when I left GameStop. And then at the end, we'll even do some videos about how I got into YouTube, because that's still part of the whole video game thing. So there's a lot more stuff that happened in my life, but we're just going to be kind of focusing on the game stuff. So let me know if this is something you guys are interested in. I'm probably going to do it anyways, because it gives me a place to just rant, and also, as weird as it sounds, it kind of gives an archive of things in my life, or maybe even my kids who don't care, but if they ever wanted to, they could watch it and, you know, find out what weird stuff I was doing when they were little babies and whatnot. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about the concept and the idea down in the comments. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, help gets it out there. Plus, it helps me, with my confidence, which is probably the most important thing of having a YouTube channel, is that you feel better about yourself as a human. And yeah, just, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, we have a lot of different content. This is something that's just new, and I'm going to try and have these videos out every Monday for you guys, so we'll go on this journey together. And don't forget, if you guys want, you guys can check out Heather and I have a Pinky and the Beard Patreon. It helps to get equipment for the vlogging channel. We don't use any of the money for normal bills and stuff like that. It is purely to get this vlogging, adventure, whatever channel up off the ground and get it moving. So go check it out. We got some cool things in there. So, but anyways, guys, until next Monday, I'm Modii. It's Monday. This is Mondays with Modii. And I want to thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.